Another form of renewable energy is what we call hydroelectric power. This is a form of electricity that we use pretty extensively in New York State. We have, if you think about Niagara Falls, there's a large power generating electricity plant there. We use a lot of hydroelectric power in New York State. And so the concept and how this works is really pretty simple. We talked earlier about fossil fuels, boiling water to create steam to spin a turbine. Hydroelectric power uses, rather than steam and heat, it uses moving water. Okay? What we do typically is a dam can be built that impounds a river or a stream, and then that water is allowed through the dam in a controlled manner. And as it moves through the dam, it spins a turbine, which is connected to a generator, which is connected to power lines, and it produces electricity. Okay. And so we can see that simplified model here, and then the water just continues downstream. That's how a hydroelectric dam works. And this generates zero emissions electricity. Okay, it's just moving water, moving this turbine. Of course, there are other energy costs and other impacts based on building this dam, but this is how hydroelectric power works. Moving water spins a turbine, which is connected to a generator to generate electricity. So often it uses dams. Sometimes it's just a river, or there are even tidal hydroelectric generators, which as the tides rise and fall, these tidal generators utilize that movement of water to spin a turbine. The generation of electricity doesn't cause any waste or pollution, but there can be significant impacts on ecosystems. When you take a river and you build a dam, behind the dam you create a reservoir of water, a large area that's similar to a lake. So you radically alter that ecosystem upstream of the dam. You're taking a river ecosystem and transforming it into a lake ecosystem. So that's one issue, is that it certainly impacts organisms that require that habitat. There's also the issue of sediment trapping. So typically in a naturally flowing river, sediment is carried. Sand and other materials are carried in the river, and eventually most of that, as that river empties into the ocean and the water slows down, it drops that sediment. And what that does is it builds up the coastline or maintains the coastline. It forms a delta because coastlines are constantly being eroded by wave and wind action. But when you put a dam on a river, that sediment gets trapped behind the dam. We can see it here. We can see when this dam was placed on this river, sediment starts to build up behind it. That sediment is not moving downstream. Therefore, it's not being deposited. And therefore, as the coastline erodes, that can become a problem because there's no new sediment being added to that delta area. It also can affect organisms that spawn upstream. Many types of fish live in the oceans and then eventually move upstream to spawn and reproduce. Well, putting a dam in their way can have an impact. Okay? And there are ways around that. For example, this is a fish ladder where fish can actually make their way to the other side of the dam by utilizing this ladder. There's also something called a salmon cannon, which I'll show you in class. But there are types of technology that can reduce this impact on fish. Now, you should know some major dams that these are huge, large-scale dams that generate huge amounts of electricity and have had significant environmental impacts. So this is the Aswan High Dam. This is in Egypt. Okay, it's a dam on the Nile River. We know that you probably know that the Nile River flows north into the Mediterranean, and the Aswan High Dam is here, okay, in southern Egypt. And the Aswan High Dam, when it was built, you can see it here. This is the main dam, okay, and this is the Nile. And what we see is this is it's called Lake Nasser now. This is the lake that was created from the damming of the Nile River. And we can see This is the Nile River. Okay, we can see the dam here, and we can see the lake that was formed behind it. So the Aswan High Dam was created to generate electricity, certainly, but also in terms of flood control. So because now we're controlling the flow of water down the Nile, we can reduce flooding, we can make things more predictable. And so this is one example of a large-scale hydroelectric power. Here's another one. This is the Three Gorges Hydroelectric Power Station. This is the world's largest power station of any kind. It's on the Yangtze River in China. You can see its location here. You can see the Three Gorges Dam here. And this is just one of the turbines. You can see how immense it is. Okay, and so this is, again, another huge hydroelectric installation. We can see the reservoir created behind the Three Gorges Dam. And again, this is impacting people, communities, animals, organisms that utilize this area have been displaced by the creation of the Three Gorges Dam. And here's one that you may even have visited, or you might visit someday. This is the Hoover Dam. The Hoover Dam's in the Colorado River. Okay, and we can see it right here. Okay, so you can, if you ever visit Las Vegas, you can go and visit the Hoover Dam. It's pretty interesting. It's nice, interesting to look at. But the Hoover Dam dammed the Colorado River. Okay, this is the Colorado River. The Hoover Dam was created to generate electricity, to provide drinking water, to reduce flooding. And the Hoover Dam, when it was created behind it Lake Mead. Okay, Lake Mead didn't exist before the Hoover Dam was created, but once the river was dammed, the Colorado River, then Lake Mead was created. You can see the dam here. You used to be able to drive over the top of it. I don't think you can anymore. There's a bypass, but you could go in. You could see different parts of it if you ever go and visit that part of the world. There's also the possibility of using tidal generation or wave action to generate electricity. The tides rise and flow each day, obviously, and so there are special turbines which are suited to capturing this energy. There's horizontal or vertical turbines that can be used in tidal action, and we see an example here that when high tide comes, okay, there are gates that can trap that water behind in a tidal basin, and then that water is allowed to drain back out to the ocean at low tide, and as it moves through, it moves past the turbine, which spins, generating electricity. Okay? And so these types of turbines can generate electricity with relatively lower impacts on ecosystems as compared to huge dam constructed hydroelectric power.